Now, it gives me a great honor and privilege to request past District Governor Dato Bindi to give a welcome address. She, during her District Governor uh, days, she advanced mental health in the district. So over to you, PDG Dato Bindi.
Thank you so much, MC Dr. Raj. Good afternoon to all. Now, before I go on to my welcome address, are there any questions on the um, project submission by project proposal by Gordon? If there are any questions, we can take a few now. You can unmute and ask. No questions? So Gordon has done an excellent job in explaining the project, and we hope to receive a lot of participation from all of you. Yeah. So anyway, welcome to our second phase of mental health talks for the benefit of the public. And these talks are scheduled for the next 5 weeks, same time, same place, same Zoom ID, on addressing current issues of concern. Now, our esteemed speakers and moderators are all members of the National Coalition for Mental Wellbeing, and it represents a huge cross section of the wealth of expertise available in NCMW. And our deepest gratitude to all these professional advocates of mental health for taking time off to create awareness. Now, our website provides a good resource of context for any mental health emergency situation. So do check out our website, and we will post a web page link in the chat group. Now, the mental health agenda is extremely wide, and this month is a special month which we would like to emphasize and dedicate to mental health activities. October 10 being World Mental Health Day, and we are focusing on anti-bullying, more specifically in schools. Yes, bullying is a cause of concern in the workplace, but our focus is towards children in schools. Thus, today, you just witnessed the launch of an anti-bullying campaign, which will see our 86 Rotary clubs with a strength of 2,000 members advocate and create awareness in this cause and tackle the root causes of bullying. Now, according to statistics by the Ministry of Education, in between 2012 and 2015, there were 14,000 bullying cases at school that were recorded. And it's so widespread amongst children in Malaysia that a recent nationwide survey found that 8 out of 10 Malaysian children have encountered bullying in their respective schools. Recently, we completed training over 360 school counselors in mental health first aid. One requirement is for them to report back cases that they come across in schools. And it's shocking to know that there are many cases of suicide ideation and self-harm besides depression, stress, and anxiety. I would like to thank the team behind the scenes who are members of our Rotary Action Group on Mental Health Initiatives. It's an amazing team doing amazing work, and we are in our 3rd year running. Our first chairman was our MC, Dr. Rajkumar, followed by Dr. Dixon, and currently is Mahindran, who is currently overseas. They are all dedicated to the cause of mental health. And in conclusion, mental well-being begins with you. Each of us are responsible for our own mental well-being, making it a daily ritual to spend 10 minutes by yourself doing something that brings peace to yourself. It could be just sitting down in introspection or meditation or reading a book in peace or praying or doing an activity that you enjoy. You deserve this me time. A strong, positive mental attitude will create more miracles than any wonder drug. Thank you and enjoy the talk.
Thank you, PDG Dato Bindi, for giving us insight into bullying. It's indeed a serious problem in Malaysia. And mind you, it's not just the victim that needs help. Even the aggressor needs help. And that's where we are. And now come up, I would like to give a brief introduction to the moderator of this talk this evening. She is Rotarian RR Manjari, who is a chartered psychologist for well over 30 years of clinical, academic, and administrative experience. She works with children, adolescents, and adults from multi-ethnic and multicultural backgrounds. She is an applied clinical psychologist at Gleneagles Medini Hospital, Johor Bahru, and a consultant clinical psychologist at Kensington Garden Specialist Center, Iskandar Putri, Johor. She is very well versed in a field of expertise, and probably she'll be a very good moderator. She will be a good moderator this evening. So over to you, RR Manjari. The floor is yours.
So much, Dr. Raj, for that. Can you hear me? All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Raj. I would like to introduce the speaker, Ms. Sharrada Segaran. She's the co-founder and director of Mind Matters Network, a mental health organization by youth, for youth, guided by professionals. Sharrada is a final year medical student passionate about driving the mental health agenda to the forefront of the country, focusing on improving mental health literacy. Sharrada has been featured by UNICEF, World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, WAGGGS, and recently made an appearance in Wiki Impact as one of the 6 youths under 25 who are making a difference for Malaysia. Congratulations, Sharrada. We're really proud of you. She has also been the chair of the NCMW Youth Task Force and was the youngest board member in the National Coalition of Mental Wellbeing. She actively speaks on youth mental health as a guest speaker in schools and national events. She has represented Malaysia in the ECOSOC Youth Forum, Asian University Student Council Union, and Global Youth Summit. She co-authored the Handbook on Youth Mental Health in Malaysia, which distributed over 2,000 copies in the first month to educational institutes and community centers all over Malaysia for free. Sharrada holds a degree in medical sciences, honors, and is currently completing her clinical training for medicine, MCHD, in Australia. So a very warm welcome to our speaker as well as the audience here, and let's all listen to what Sharrada has for us today. So before we go into the session, I would like to pass the floor to Sharrada. Thank you, Sharrada, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Rotarian Manjari, for such a warm welcome and introduction. Truly humbled by it. I'd like to start off our presentation today with a video. And let me just quickly share my screen.
Hi, we're the Mind Matters Network, and let's take a look at our story. In 2021, a small but dedicated team of youth with one voice and one mission started the Mind Matters Network. Powered by our motto, by the youth, for the youth, and with the youth, here's our founding director.
I'm Sharrada Segaran, and I'm the founding director of Mind Matters Network. Mind Matters Network is a youth platform that brings together mental health initiatives so that it reaches both schools and university students at ground level.
As an NGO, we operate on 3 main core values. Number 1 is to advocate. Advocacy plays an important role in bringing enlightenment and breaking the stigma within our community. Our Youth Mental Health Handbook has been the first step in making our mission come to life. Number 2 is network. We're keen on bringing different organizations together with one mission. A physical event we did recently was our mental health exhibition at Subang, and also a digital collaboration that we did with the Dietitian Press that benefits both our audiences. Number 3 is to support. Establishing a reliable and quality support system has been one of Mind Matters' key missions. We achieve this through holding various workshops and programs with different organizations around Malaysia. And by holding these 3 core values true to us, we just kept growing. Starting off with our successful Youth Mental Health Handbook. which has been distributed over 2,000 copies with 31 partner institutions and 20 initiatives. And it doesn't stop there. We have 3,000 newly published handbooks ready to be distributed. You might be wondering what the handbook is all about. Well, it's a valuable tool that contains common mental health disorders to even ways to recover and manage. And best of all, it's free. And it doesn't stop there. We've held many handbook launch events and distributed them at various programs, prominent ones being the NCMW's forum and also with the IMU stakeholder engagement. We had a successful mental health exhibition at Taylor's University, held an interactive workshop at the Inti Subang Mental Health Awareness Week, and even collaborated with the Art Therapy Academy to provide art therapy workshops at IMU Bukadjalil. So what's next? While we are a youth-led NGO, we would love your support. So does your organization want to make a difference in the youth mental health landscape? Well, you can make an impact today. Follow, collaborate, and support. Hi, we're the Mind Matters.
And that wraps up the video. I would just like to give a huge shout out and my gratitude to the National Coalition of Mental Wellbeing, who has supported us since day one, when I was in my early years of medical school, when I first started Mind Matters with my late professor, Dr. Philip George, who was very supportive alongside Mr. Brian, and the National Coalition has been there with us from day one. In fact, with all the handbooks we've been able to distribute, the National Coalition as well as Rotary has been our strongest supporter. Who else would give a grant for a youth to go and distribute handbooks, 2,000 in fact, without any prior experience? So I'm very happy to be here today with all of you. I truly believe that both Rotary and the National Coalition have been strong supporters of youth mental health, not just now when it has become a hot topic and everyone's speaking about youth mental health, but they've been there from the start and supporting us from the work that we do and continuing to do the great work. So it's an honor to be here today. So Ms. Manjari, I'm excited to start.
All right. Thank you so much, Sharrada, for that video. Indeed, it's a wonderful, what shall I say, objective goal that you guys are doing, the youths are doing, which I think we definitely need, people like you, and definitely you can inspire our generations to come. Okay, so just giving you a heads up. So the next, I say about, say 55 minutes or so, it's going to be a Q&A session, and I will be asking some questions to the speaker today so that, it will be interactive and it will be more interesting for you. And we have a quiz after that, which is, I think, going to be exciting and interesting again for you. And later we will have a video, and we also are welcoming some questions from the audience. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat. We will pick it up. And when we have a question answer session, based on your questions, I think you will get all your answers. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so we will go straight into, certain questions to be posed to Sharrada. All right, the first question, Sharrada, for you. I think before I ask you, let me just ask the audience here. Dear audience, I have a question for you. Okay, I think earlier it was PDGCT who spoke about bullying, and she said bullying is harassing now, if I got it right. Okay, so here's a question to the audience. What do you think is bullying? You have about 15 seconds. Please put it in the chat. What do you understand of the term bullying? All right, clock is ticking. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay, so I guess we will stop here. Thank you so much. I think we have about 7 or 8 responses here. So Sharrada, I'll just read it out for you. So some of our audience have said bullying is taking advantage. It's humiliation, taking advantage of the weaker people. It's an act that negatively affects people, either mentally or physically. Yes, very true. Anyone who thinks they are in power over others. It's an action or words that make someone uncomfortable, assertion or dominance, a kind of harassment, physical assault. Wow. Thank you so much for that, those wonderful answers. Okay, over to you, Sharrada. Would you like to add anything to the bullying?
Yeah, so I think we've all agreed that when we speak about bullying, it's a wide spectrum. It's not just black and white. Earlier, when the conversation surrounding bullying used to occur, a lot of people used to categorize bullying such as physical harassment, otherwise verbal harassments. But there is a lot of small things that have evolved over the years. For instance, cyberbullying, which is very much prevalent these days and is one of the biggest issues, which I'm glad that we're addressing through the Yana 2.0 campaign. When we speak about cyberbullying these days, it includes rude comments. And sometimes people are braver when they are not face-to-face with someone. People feel they are entitled to say whatever they wish to say. And so you see some very rude comments online that you would otherwise not see or hear in person. And in different case scenarios, you see a lot of people who end up spreading rumors online, which sometimes end up tarnishing the image of someone, the reputation of someone, which gives a lot of stress to the individual. A lot of people who have undergone bullying either face severe anxiety or depression, and some even go into social isolation. So if you look at it that way, I would say that bullying is not just 1, 2, 3 things. There are so many things that consider as bullying. And sometimes people are not even aware about what they do. They think that they are being funny or, they are being cool. It's a joke and, you're not able to take a joke. You're a snowflake. But those are things that are considered bullying.
Okay. Thank you for those insights, Sharrada, about bullying. Okay, so my question to you is, what is the prevalence of bullying in Malaysia?
So according to the UNICEF report in 2018, 84% of children under 18 have reported incidents of bullying. That happens predominantly in school, and some have even reported bullying at home. So 1 in 5 children have been bullied in their lifetime. And earlier, according to Dato' Bindi's speech as well, 8 in 10. So that in itself just shows you how big this issue is in Malaysia. And it's not just a gender-specific issue. While we do see higher prevalence of physical bullying among boys, there's always an incident recorded of higher amount of verbal bullying among girls. For some reason, this has been the statistics all the while, but there has also not been a clear record of cyberbullying, harassment, and other sorts of bullying which occur more prevalently these days in Malaysia.
Okay, thank you so much. So the other question is that why does bullying occur? Why does it happen actually?
So when you speak about bullying, most of the time we speak about the victims in itself. But I feel that when you speak about bullying, those who are causing others pain in themselves are people who are hurting. So I would say that sometimes they have their own issues which they are not able to address, either it being some having low self-esteem, some either not getting the attention that they want to, some feeling that they want to show that they're superior than others, be it physically or just through the way of speaking or just trying to act cool in front of their friends most of the time, honestly. So what happens is that these individuals tend to pry on those who they think are weaker. And most of the time when you look at it, bullying occurs in groups. Very rarely you would see one person who's causing this much of a turbulence in the school. It's usually a group of people. But what I have come to realize over the years is that every time we speak about bullying in school, we have always focused on what happens between students. So saying that it's one student bullying another student. But what I'd like to share with you today is something that I've not actually spoken about before. And it's also the reason why the moment I saw the anti-bullying campaign, I was very eager to raise up my hands, although I've got finals in 2 weeks. So coming back to the issue of bullying itself, I was 12 years old, and in school, I was very active since young in the field of advocacy. So there was this incident where an activity came to the school, and the teacher had needed to take up a few participants to join the activity. I'm going way off script here, but I think it's always better to make it more personal, and I want to share this with you. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a really boring lecture. So what happened was I signed up for this activity alongside a few of my friends. We were very excited. This was the first activity. I come from Kedah, which means that a lot of the activities that we get there are not similar to the kind of activities that are usually run in Selangor or KL. It's very rare that you get opportunities to join international events. So we were very excited about it. That was all we were speaking about for the whole week. A week later, the teacher comes back and tells us that the activity is not going through. It's been cancelled, it's been called off. But a day later, I noticed on the internet, since all of us are there this day, that there were still spots left. So what I did, I called the state commissioner that day and I told her that, look, I'm still very interested. If you've got spot for one more, would you be able to give me a chance? And I promise you will not be disappointed. So she realized something was not right. That weekend, she came to school based on the call of a 12-year-old to see what is going on in that school. So true enough, there was spots left. The teacher perhaps just was not keen. And every time you've got activities, especially with those under 12, you're required to accompany a student as well. I'm not sure what the issue exactly there was. But that was a mark, both for the school as well as for the teacher. So this happened when I was 11 in December, which meant the following year, I was still in the same school. I went for the camp, I learned a lot, and I was very keen to progress further in the space, and especially to empower more people so that we had more advocates in this space. But when I came back to my school, the treatment I received was very different. So I was part of the dancing group in the school. I'm a classical dancer. I've been trained since I was 5. That year, I was removed from the dance group. I was told that I'm quite stiff. And I've been dancing Bharatanatyam for 7 years at that point. I was removed from the choral speaking team. I was removed from every team that I was on. I was supposed to be one of the higher rank in the prefect board that year. That was also taken away. I would be put into a lot of training and selection programs where I would attend hours and hours after school practice. But then I would not end up being listed on those teams. And every time it came down, the answer was same, that I was not good enough for it. The school team, who had their own unit itself, was not keen to sign off on any of the things that I was doing. In Girl Guides, you collect badges. So to progress, you needed someone to sign off. So this in itself was a very different sort of bullying. I spoke to the headmaster at some point, and her response to it was that I should not have gone above the school to do what I did. So I would be called to the headmaster's office, or at times when the headmaster was in the cafeteria, and I'll be told to be waiting outside of the cafeteria because she wanted to see me. So the whole year was me going in and out of staff rooms, as well as the principal's office, because apparently I have done an unforgivable crime. I was not going to give up. Bullying occurred, power abuse occurred, which is something I stand against. And it's also the reason why I joined the National Coalition and I continued to form Mind Matters later on to support other people in this space. I think youth advocacy is something that's very, very important. I would not wish what happened to me to anyone else, but I would definitely say that that made me much, much stronger. I found different ways to make sure I was still able to do what I liked. I was not able to get my badges signed off in my school. So what I would do after school, I would go to the school next door because there were 6 schools. So I'll wait for that teacher to finish her class and sign me off. I was still a classical dancer and I continued training very hard. And later on in secondary school, I was dance captain, and I also took part in a lot of international competitions. I didn't let go of what was important to me. And when I share this story with you today, it is not to fault anyone. It's not to blame anyone. From the bottom of my heart, I forgive the teachers who were involved in this. It was power abuse. It was not right. But when you look at it, what is it that they were going through, that they felt the need to take it out on a 12-year-old? So that is why when there were programs came up by Rotary, mental health training for the school teachers in itself, I felt that it was very, very important. Because when you speak about mental health, school teachers are the one who are primarily in contact with so many children. You're in charge to mold these kids, to cultivate their growth, and to give them opportunities. And if you yourself are the one stepping down on them, then where do they go to complain? Where do they go to seek justice? So when you come back speaking about why does bullying occur, it is not just something that occurs among those who are the same age with you, among your peers. It happens at every level, unfortunately. And that is what we call power abuse. And I'm not going to say that I'm the only one where something like this has happened. I know there are many others out there who have had those instances. The only reason I'm able to speak about it now is because I've been given a platform. And I've also met the right people who have taken me under their wing and have helped me to grow. But there are many others who, if you think about it, might not have had the same opportunity. And given the amount of consequences certain actions have, it really does make you question whether you want to get into the field of advocacy. I'm also very careful of what I say, because I know the price of advocacy. So if I'm going to take up a certain cause, I'm 100% in it. Back to you, Ms. Manjari.
All right. Thank you, Sharrada, for that wonderful sharing. And I'm really happy for you. I'm glad that you were able to get over it and you made it so far. And hopefully all the best and everything will be fine after this. And you will still continue to motivate others and inspire others. Yeah, thank you so much. And we're done for that. Okay, so as you rightly pointed out, bullying definitely is, and some of our audience also have put in the chat earlier, it is definitely power abuse. It's somebody, who is weaker, according to them, weaker. And definitely there is some authority. That's what I could see from your sharing as well. Yeah, all right. So I go on to the next question. What is the current status of mental health literacy in Malaysia?
So a very interesting study was carried out in 2022 with 1,400 adolescents from 9 secondary schools in Selangor. And out of those students, only 3% showed adequate understanding of mental health. And that's a very, very low number. And considering where the study was done as well, it was done in Selangor, which is one of the areas where a lot of mental health awareness programs are done, both be it at school as well as clubs. And when you speak about the socioeconomic distribution as well, you would think Selangor and Kuala Lumpur region as a whole, Klang Valley, would rank much higher. So saying that this is our best region in Malaysia and the mental health literacy is just at 3% at best, what about the other states? And what about the rest of the youth? And this was done among youths aged 13 to 15, if I'm not mistaken, that year. And there haven't been much studies in this area as well. While there have been initiatives by the government, unfortunately, not all schools have fallen under those programs, which also restricts the data that we're able to look at when it comes to this issue as a whole.
All right. Thank you for that. So we move on to the next question. What is the connection between anti-bullying campaigns and the need to improve mental health literacy?
So if you look at it, anti-bullying is one subset of the bigger subset, which is mental health. But when we speak about campaigns, it is always better to look at particular issues that you're trying to tackle. Because when you look at it as a whole, it doesn't fully address the issue that you're trying to solve there. Instead, it just becomes everything that's touched on the surface. So I would say mental health is the bigger umbrella where anti-bullying campaign lies. But when you speak about anti-bullying itself, it ties back to people understanding mental health. And when you speak about understanding, it obviously ties back to the literacy level. Because these days, the issue is not with awareness. Everyone is doing awareness campaign. But when you speak to them and you ask them, do you know what exactly you're creating awareness for? That is where you realize there's a huge gap of knowledge. Because a lot of people believe that either drawing a green pin or posting one picture for the World Suicide Day qualifies as creating awareness. But this is so much more than that. If we are going to fight the stigma, the taboo, and make true change in this space, it starts with education. Like everything else, education is the key to this. You see a lot of youth throwing out issues and saying things like depression, anxiety. These are clinical diagnoses, which unfortunately these days have become terms that are used very loosely in social settings. So you call someone out and they don't feel like coming out. They would tell you, I'm feeling suicidal today. I don't feel I have the energy to go out. Is that what they actually mean? So you need to make sure that the society as a whole understands what exactly they're trying to say. And when it comes to the space of anti-bullying, it's a little bit more tricky because there you're going to speak to people who firstly don't even acknowledge that they might have struggles with their mental health, especially if you're speaking to the aggressors. Like I said previously, in a lot of these cases, while we focus a lot on the victims, and rightfully so, we should also give equal attention to the aggressors to understand what is the reason behind their behavior. And most of the time, they themselves are struggling with either anxiety and in some cases bipolar disorder as well, has shown to have some link with increased bullying in schools especially. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, I agree with you. And as our MC, Dr. Raj, mentioned earlier, I think the one who bullies and the victim or the bullied both definitely need help. It's not just the victim alone. And of course, we do have a lot of videos, flying around on social media. We do have movies, so which are showing like, different personality traits, like say, for example, narcissistic personality disorder. I'm sorry, I'm in the field, so I'm talking about it. So definitely there is something there, and it can again go back to the background of the individual, the environment that she or he was in, all contributed to a particular type of a personality or even bullying for that matter. Yeah, thank you so much, Sharrada, for that. Okay, I have another question for you. Why is there a need to improve mental health literacy?
So the first thing I realized was, especially among youth itself, when we're not sure about something, the first thing we do is to Google it. And from my experience, if you're having a headache, it's somehow cancer. If you're having back pain, that's also cancer. If you're feeling tired, that's also cancer. So this was the kind of information that was circulating around. And unfortunately for us, that is how all of us go to get our information these days. And I'm not free of guilt here as well. We do go to the internet for everything. But what happens is that it shows us the worst possible thing that could be happening. And then you've got all of these medical articles and journals being published, as well as the reference book itself, such as DSM-5, which puts everything in such clinical terms with all these huge words that anyone who's reading about it is going to feel that their life is absolutely doomed. That was how we felt when we first started exploring more into the mental health field. So I spoke about this with my colleagues, and we decided that if we were going to destigmatize the issue, we needed to break it down in ways that was understandable to the public. Something that was not too heavy, that people felt overwhelmed reading. Something that we didn't just write for the sake of writing to say that we have published a book. Something that we would use ourselves. So we came up with a handbook on youth mental health, where we broke down terms to more layman terms. We had photos in it. We had a lot of people proofreading it. before we decided this was a material that we were proud of and happy of to take and bring out to the society as a whole. So we speak about why do we need to improve mental health literacy. Any of our fight in the mental health area is going to come back to how well you understand the issue of mental health. There is no point of attending all the talks by the professionals if after the Zoom call ends, you're just going to off and that's the end of it. Anyone can preach to you about therapy session, but if you don't understand what exactly works behind it and why exactly it's important, you're not going to go for it as well. And as we know, in Malaysia, mental health has still got such a huge stigma. We are working very hard to destigmatize this. And the best way and the best place to start is school. Unfortunately, till today, we do not have a full curriculum on mental health integrated in any of our education system. And I understand that it's difficult for it to be done. And that's where all of us as NGOs come in, trying to educate the public on this topic. So when we speak about mental health literacy in itself, when we look at the distribution as a whole, in a lot of advanced countries, their mental health literacy level is already there. What they need, though, is therapy. But in Malaysia, we have got a lack of understanding in the literacy in itself, and we've also got lack of access to these services. But if you want to get people to these services, you need to ensure that they know exactly why it's important. They need to believe in it. There's no point of forcing someone going for therapy or counseling sessions, especially in school. You know, when someone has done something and they're writing them down for counseling, it seems like it's a punishment, and they don't realize that it's there to actually help them improve. So you need to make them understand that this is something for them. It is not something that we're doing as a punitive statement. It's not something for us to send a message out that it's bad. I still recall in school when someone used to get a letter to the counseling department, it was a pink letter, and they would hide it and put it into a bag, and they would go to the counseling room with the bag because no one needs to see them with the pink letter, or no one has to see them going into the counselor's room. It's such a taboo. So if you want to get over that taboo in itself, it's important for them to understand what exactly mental health means. This means understanding the diseases in itself. What are the signs? What are the symptoms? Also understanding what are the treatment options that are available there. That not just helps you to understand yourself better, but to be able to reach out to someone who might be struggling. In a lot of these cases, a lot of us are the first point of contact for our loved ones, be it family or friends who are struggling and going through something. But the problem is that we don't recognize or realize this until it becomes too late. In some cases, it's quite sad that people feel that those who are struggling are attention seekers, or they're just doing it because they want something out of it. And a lot of people sometimes tell others to just snap out of it, that they're not being fun enough. While your friend there is probably struggling through anxiety and depression and going through their own turmoil. So I think by improving the mental health literacy of our society as a whole, we will be creating a much more understanding society where people will not just look out for those who are in their circle, but say a colleague or someone else who reaches out and say that, I'm afraid I have to take leave today because of mental health reason. You're able to understand that, and you won't label them as lazy or not doing their job, which is very hurtful of someone who's already going through so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Sharrada. Dear audience, please post your questions in the chat if you have anything. And once Sharrada and we finish with our question answer session, we can pick up your questions and Sharrada will address those. Thank you so much. I have another question for you, Sharrada. I hope you're not tired.
All good.
All right. So the next question is, what can we do to build a more resilient society?
I think resilience is a broad term that people use these days. But what exactly does it mean once again? We are speaking about a society who's able to withstand not just pressure, Because most of the time when people speak about resilience, they say that you're able to withstand pressure. But we're not trying to build pressure cookers around here. What we're trying to do is to empower people to understand themselves better, to understand their society better, to be able to advocate not just for themselves, but for people around them. I really like the sentence Dr. Raj used earlier, that there is hope and there is help. And that is what we are walking towards. We want to build a society who are able to not let go, no matter how hard it gets, for them to know that there are always options out there and there are always people out there who are looking out for you, who are willing to be there to listen to you and to walk the journey with you. I would like to focus my topic of resilience, particularly among the youth, since that's the area that I work a lot in. I think when you speak about building resilience in the community, it is a lot about giving them the platform, listening to what they have to say. A lot of youth have got a lot to say. What they do need is a proper platform for them to channel this. You see a lot of conversation going on in social media. And sometimes as I read through it, I think they have got such cute points. But it's such a pity that their voices are not heard because the limited number of spots available for youth themselves to express themselves. Secondly, I do feel having a strong buddy system or a mentorship program is something that would be hugely beneficial to the youth community. I remember when I first started and I joined the National Coalition during its early days. I was there in one of the early meetings. And it was such a humbling experience to be there with so many professionals who were so interested to what you had to say. They gave me the platform, and I think that was huge. That was that moment. Everyone has got that moment that made that change. That was that moment for me. And I had PDG Sipi, PDG Bindi, Mr. Brian, Dr. Raj as well, who was chairing at that time, and also my late professor, Dr. Philip George, who were always there every step of the way and made me feel that I was not alone in this journey of advocating. And that is something that's very important. A lot of people feel that they are in this alone, that they have got this huge burden that they need to solve alone. And that's a huge burden for anybody to carry. So just having others in the field who they're able to look up to, for them to ask for advice, is very, very beneficial. And once you have got that platform, building that network with others who have got similar interests with you is something that would really elevate your organization in itself. You will realize once you get started that there are a lot of people who feel strongly about a certain cause and are also passionate about it. And they would want to be part of your network. And that is how a lot of organizations tend to grow. So when we speak about building resilience, it's not a solo fight. It's a long journey, but you don't have to go on it alone. You've got a lot of people there to help you throughout your way. I think I see quite a few questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sharrada, for that. Yes. So resilience, I think, as Sharrada mentioned, yes, it is a big topic. It's a big word, actually. But people, for everything we say, oh, resilience, you have to be resilient. It's that sound actually, I think, sort of echoes everywhere nowadays. But resilience can be in a simple way, if somebody is being, say, authoritative or trying to hurt me, or in our, I think, this current presentation, we are talking about bullying or harassment or whatever. How do I deal with it, basically, right? I can maybe keep quiet. I can say like, oh, okay, fine, that's you, but it is not affecting me. Can be resilience, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to be a major definition type of an answer or an action or anything. The way you can deal with it at that particular moment. But if at a later point you want to seek help, if you want to go look for better options, yes, why not? That can be resilience as well. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sharrada. I think I am done with my questions. I don't have any more questions. But yes, we do have some questions from the audience or the participants here. Are you okay if I pick them up now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, all right. So you can continue to post your questions, our participants and the audience here, and we will go one by one. So I have some questions here, unless the MC, do you have anything would you like to share with me? Okay.
No, I don't have. I think let's give the space for the questions. I think you're doing it very well, and Sharrada, I'm terribly impressed. Let's carry on.
Okay. All right. So I will go with the participants or the audience's first question. Okay, this is more like a statement. Aggressor having their own issues is not an excuse to bully others. Would you like to comment on that, Sharrada?
Yeah, it's definitely not an excuse. It's any sort of unkindness. It's not an excuse for you to show that unkindness further to somebody else. But I think what we are trying to do here is to come to an understanding that both sides need help, which I think we can all agree on.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I guess you addressed this, but this is a question from our audience. So I'm just putting it back to you. What's the difference between harassment and bullying?
So harassment is a form of bullying. While many might look at it as two separate entities, harassment is very much bullying. It could be sexual harassment, it could be verbal harassment, but all of it falls under the same border and should not be tolerated.
Okay, all right. So this is again the statement, but I will read it out. Bullying happens everywhere, not only in schools. Yes, we do agree to that.
Yeah.
Even in organizations and corporate companies, if one is vocal, you already put yourself to power abuse. It's so inspiring to hear your story. Those in power are very good at bullying, and one has to be strong and not mentally affected by these. Would you like to comment on that, Sharrada?
So I can definitely relate to this because it's something I've gone through myself. But nobody can silence you. You have got your voice and you need to keep your head high up no matter what goes through. Because at the end of the day, you stay true to your values and you don't change yourself because the world has been unkind to you. Because there are many people out there who are kind to you and who will give you a very different experience. It's unfortunate that sometimes we come into contact with some that might not be as supportive or might take it the extra level and actually bully you in your space. But keeping quiet is never the solution, because when you're keeping quiet, firstly, you're just letting that happen more towards you. It is your way of being submissive. And that's what a lot of bullies like. They like having someone submissive. And secondly, even if you're not able to make that change for yourself, you would make a change for someone else. Say you speak out about it, others would be aware about it. They would either be more careful about it or something will get done for it. So if it's not your batch, maybe a junior's batch might have something different to say about the situation in the coming years.
Okay, thank you, Sharrada. Okay, there's a question. Bullying was there in the past as well. What's the difference between bullying some 30 to 40 years back? Do you think it was their coping skills that helped them, or the people now are labeling everything under mental health category?
I like this question. So firstly, I would like to say that 30 or 40 years back, people were not as involved in cyberbullying compared to the recent years. You can actually see the spike of cyberbullying cases, especially in the recent past 10 years. The cases on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook has gone much higher than it has ever been. And most of the time, these sort of cyberbullying cases are the ones that are getting reported. So when you look at the figures and you say the number of cases are much higher, most of the time you're actually neglecting the numbers, which most likely are very much higher because people don't really report verbal abuse as well as physical abuse, and unfortunately sometimes sexual abuse as well, which gets reported much later. So the number of cases that are usually given figures and numbers is through PDRM under the cyberbullying category, because they're able to see the number of reports that are coming through and the number of reports that are being recorded in itself. And secondly, speaking about mental health and saying that a lot of people are putting a lot of things under the mental health umbrella, I'm happy that people are starting to look at mental health as one of the reasons these things are actually becoming prevalent. A few years back, people felt that mental health was a taboo, so they didn't want to label something under that. They were much more comfortable being labeled as aggressive instead of being labeled as someone who was struggling with their mental health. So having more people coming forth with this umbrella of mental health in a way is because of a lot of the awareness that has gone around. And that shows how much we as a society have actually progressed in this space. But of course, I would also acknowledge that sometimes this mental health term, unfortunately, does get manipulated quite a bit. And that is where the bad name for mental health in itself comes. But that should in no way make the mental health reason itself as something that should be looked down upon, because there are real people out there, real victims with real stories of abuse, which I feel should not be neglected.
Thank you so much, Sharrada. I'm glad you addressed the towards the end, where you said the mental health term or the terminology itself being manipulated or abused. But yes, I do agree with you. And I think if I may just add a sentence here, in the past or 30 to 40 years back, I think this is maybe from my experience, and there are others maybe of my age who will be maybe able to agree to this. I think it was different in the past. They had the coping skills or the support system, or somebody was there, and they were not sort of alone, And I think it was not like everything was like, I have to reach out somewhere, I have to look for something outside type of a thing. But I think now the trend has changed, times have changed. We are in a mechanical world. So I guess all those things definitely contribute. Okay, so the time is running out. So I'll just quickly go to the next question. There are just two statements here. I'll just read it out. Okay, bullying is very rampant in schools because there is inadequate punitive action taken when bullying is reported to authorities. Bullying at home also is there. Yes. Okay, there is a question, I guess, here. As a public school counselor, how do I go about educating my colleagues about mental health or anything that relates to it, so as to give them the necessary information so that they can play a role in helping the students as a whole? Sharrada, over to you.
Yes, so a lot of organizations carry out programs, either those being programs targeted for the school teachers in itself or for the students as a whole. So the National Coalition themselves, together with the District Action Group of Mental Health, do carry out counselor training programs as well as school teachers training programs on the mental health first aid program. It is something that's been done quite widely throughout Malaysia. So if you are interested, do get in touch with someone after this, and I'm quite sure they would be more than happy to come to the school and get something organized there.
Okay, thank you. So we have a couple of more questions, Sharrada. I'm speeding up a bit. I'm so sorry.
No.
Please bear with me, audience. Okay, so how can one avoid being bullied, and where should he or she seek shelter?
So I want you to first be very clear that bullying is not because of something you did. It is nothing wrong with you. Unfortunately, you were the wrong place at the wrong time and got caught up with the wrong people, which put you in that spot in the first place. So it is never the victim's fault. So when you say that very clearly, it is not something that is avoided sometimes. It's just, unfortunately, sometimes you just get tangled into situations. But I would say never stay silent. That is the biggest takeaway. If there's one message you remember from today, let it be that you should never keep quiet when someone is bullying you. Either report it to someone who's in there, who's authoritative, who can do something about it, or at least tell somebody you're close to what is going on. Never keep it to yourself. So when you asked about where do you go to for shelter, so there are a lot of things that you can do to just elevate this situation. So firstly, be sure if you're in school and you're getting bullied, notify your parents about it, tell your friends, tell your siblings. It doesn't matter. It is not you creating a ruckus. Tell people. And I'm very sure they would come to school to meet the correct authority if what you're telling to your teacher doesn't go through. So the biggest thing I feel a lot of people do is that they feel that staying silent and it will just pass through, or they don't want to create such a huge problem, bring the parents over to school, and then later on they get bullied even further because of the whole issue. But having seen people who are in this situation, I can easily say that a lot of times they just want to intimidate you. the moment you start to push back or something is being done about it, they're very fast to retract. So if you bring somebody there who can speak on behalf of you, if you're not able to speak, who's able to just hold your hand, to just listen, that is already a huge step. In school in itself, there are a lot of systems. So if you don't want to speak to your class teacher in itself, you can go and speak to your counselor about it. You can speak to the discipline teacher about this issue as well. If there's any teacher that you're close to who would listen to you, you can go to them as well to just speak about this issue. There are a lot of student bodies that also advocate in this area. You can also speak to them. And most of the time, they're very happy to get involved, to be the mediator with the whole situation if it arises as well. Another thing is to always remember to be safe. So try to avoid going anywhere alone. Most of the time, you get caught up in situations in corners, and then a lot of physical abuse happens that way. So to just be a little bit more careful, try to go around in groups, make sure your friends are aware. So if you're missing or you're not there, someone will know something is wrong with you as well. So it comes back to the same thing. Don't stay silent and do something about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Sharrada. Okay, I have another question. Do you think the Parliament has taken the right action to further this anti-bullying in schools and higher education, as well as enlightening the youths on mental health and how to seek help? Quick one, Sharrada, please.
Yes,
Sorry.
I think we've already started in the right direction, but I think there's a lot more that needs to be done. The suicide decriminalization just went through. That was a huge battle we've been fighting for many years. So that's already a step in the right direction, and it's about going further into it. We know there's so much more that's left to be done, but we also know that we've got a lot of NGOs and the government as well who have been working very hard in this space. And I think in the coming years, we will see positive changes.
Okay, thank you again. All right, so one more question. And okay, so would you say that the response of the victim indicates perception of whether a person is bullied? For instance, a person can ignore or not feel hurt by forms of harassment and feel that they are not bullied. But would that make the person a bully victim?
Sometimes we are not aware of what bullying means, like what I explained during the start of my talk. So a lot of people are not aware that they're being bullied, especially in a group where people are speaking or saying something about you, putting you down sometimes, but they just brush it off as a joke, or, they're like, oh, it's nothing more than that. It's what a lot of people say, or you're looking too much into it. But if you're not comfortable about something, it is your right to voice that out and say, hey, look, I don't think that was funny. I don't think that is right. I don't appreciate you giving comments like that, are some of the sentences you can use to help yourself to just find your ground. But I think the first thing is being aware of what exactly bullying is. And if anything makes you question whether you're being bullied or not, it's something to look into, because otherwise someone doesn't just simply think or wonder if they're being bullied.
Okay, totally agree with you, Sharrada. I think, as I mentioned earlier also, sometimes it is difficult for us to identify that, yes, I'm being bullied. But again, it depends on individuals. So we cannot really generalize, who is bullied, who's not bullied, how they are handling, how they cannot handle, why, it's a bigger topic, I guess. Okay, so I'm so sorry, audience and the participants here. We are coming towards the end of the program, and there are, I think, 3 more questions, which I think I will just answer quickly because I think Sharrada addressed those earlier. So there is a question here. Do you think we can have this talk at primary school, educate the teachers, parents, and students? Yes, please, we can do this. And if you need more help, please contact NCMW, because NCMW is currently running a lot of programs, and we have, I think NCMW has been successful training counselors and teachers. So please do get in touch with NCMW if you need more help. The other question is that how to deal with adult bullying, especially in an organization. I think Sharrada addressed that to some extent. We do have some links available. Again, you can get in touch with NCMW, but I think we do have government links, like if it's an organization, you can go to IR. You can, look into the government agencies links where the help is available. Is it good that victims learn martial arts to face the bully to self-defense? I think we are not talking about martial arts as in not physical, if somebody is bullying me, I'm not straight away going and saying, hey, come, let's see what happens. No, I'm not doing that. But this is basically to, I think, take care of myself. If I'm the one getting bullied, I'm not harming anybody. I think that's not the end goal here, right? We have to take care of ourselves so that we also, at the end of the day, I think, show the other party who is supposed to be the person who is bullying me, also get some sort of a help, or we can actually guide the person. Do you want to go get some help? I understand you have issues, if you understand really. So I don't think martial arts would solve the problem. So I think we have addressed all the questions. Yeah, so there's this person who has said we need more support in order to overcome the stigma. Yes, totally agree with you. I think we have covered all the questions. If I have not addressed, or if Sharrada has not addressed, sorry for that, because we are almost like reaching the end of the session. City has posted some links here, NCMW. Please copy and you save the address. If you have any questions, please direct it to NCMW, and you will definitely get answers and whatever the help that is required. Thank you once again, Sharrada, for all your sharing and all your insights and the knowledge that you shared with us. And all the best, okay? And be the inspiration to all the youths out there. So over to you, Sharrada. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're just going to quickly end this with a video. I know that today we are mainly here for the launch of the Yana 2.0 campaign, and a lot of you will already be thinking of ideas of what can be done. So I'd like to share with you something that Mind Matters does. We do a mental health literacy program where we go down to schools and we're teaching them about the common disorders, as well as how do you communicate with your friend, what to say, what not to say, as well as the treatments available, as well as the help that's available. So I'm just going to quickly play something for you, so that will give you a little bit of idea when you start planning your campaign as well. So that's just a short video. That's the mental health literacy program that we do in schools. And we're very happy to come to your school to do it as well, if you'd like to have us there with you. I would just like to quickly express my gratitude once again to NCMW, Rotary as well, for having me today. And of course, my team Mind Matters Network that continue to support and help me and be there with me throughout our term. I'm actually currently in Australia, and the work in Malaysia has continued for many years, ever since we started Mind Matters. And that's only possible because of all of the loving family that I have back home. And I would say that Mind Matters is my family, and it can be your family too, if you'd like to come and join us. We are youth-led, and we focus on activities to empower youth. We truly believe that there's a lot of changes that we can bring forth as youth. Don't believe that the programs that you're doing now might just be one-off things and then you'd never look at it again. In fact, Mind Matters started when I was back in Malaysia as one of my university projects, and it continued to become a youth-led NGO a few years later, meeting the right people and getting the correct team. So when you start your project right now for your anti-bullying campaign, don't just look at it as a one-off project. Do something you're really passionate about, because it's really going to affect the lives of people out there. You have got that power to do it. You've got the platform to do it. And you've got the finance right now as well to do it. So do it, and do it well, because what you're doing is going to impact a lot of lives out there. Wishing you all the best, and I'm always happy to have a chat if you've got more questions. Thank you once again for having me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Manjari, please carry on.
Yeah, thank you, Sharrada. Thank you so much. And I would like to pass the floor back to Dr. Raj, who's the MC for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm lost for words, actually. Yeah, really lost for words. Manjari, you did a fantastic job. You've moderated excellently and so professionally, and you've given us answers, and I think you did a fantastic job. Sharrada, all the best for your exams next week, 2 weeks time. I believe you're going to be a doctor, and I'm pretty sure you'll be in psychiatry or something. I'm very sure about that. Anyway, the most important thing that has come about is you showed us the inner self, the courage, the resilience, and how you reacted positively to a negative situation, apart from all the other wonderful answers that you gave. And that brings us to our next week's topic. See, we are all in the business of helping people. And helping people is not physical, it's also mental. So we need to know our neighbors. And next week's topic is very pertinent. Our own mental health, me, myself, and I, it's not an egoistic journey there, believe me. It's something what Sharrada has told us today. It's about developing ourselves. The most important person and the best friend that anybody can have is yourself. How do we get the energy to go forwards? And how do we get to empower the people around us and do not create a mental issue? We should not be a cause of mental issue to others. So that brings us to the end of the topic. So please be present for next week's topic. We have a fantastic speaker, Dr. as good as Dr. Sharrada, Vinogiri Krishnan, Dr. Vinogiri Krishnan, and another wonderful moderator, Dr. Noor. So I thank you all, and most of all, no session is effective if the audience support isn't there. And I thank you all for being here this afternoon. This is a Sunday afternoon. I realize you have sacrificed something to be here, but believe me, you're going to take home something nice this week as well as next week and so on. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to all. So if there's anything you can ask me now, otherwise we will close the session in another few minutes, a minute or two.